You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Just a heads up, this episode is brought to you by the Script Summit Screenplay Contest, where you can win a cash prize or even a contract with a Hollywood talent manager. All you have to do is visit scriptsummit.com for more info. All right, welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast. On this episode, I am joined by a guest host as we analyze and break down a film to discover what works and what doesn't. Welcome to the podcast. All right, I'm Geoffrey D. Calhoun, and of course, with us is Kristy Leigh Lussier, story analyst and staff writer at WeFixYourScript.com. Today, we're covering The Dig. Hit you with the logline. You ready?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, this is a Netflix original. An archaeologist embarks on the historical important excavation of Sutton Hoo in 1938 in England. And I actually got to visit that whole experience in the British Museum. I got to see all of the artifacts and all that when I was down there.
No way.
Yeah, I got to see it. So I got to, and they actually didn't show one of the huge artifacts, which was a helmet. They got like an old warrior helmet that they showed, and there's some shields and stuff, and you could see how they excavated it. So I got to see all these really cool things that I expected to see in the film.
Yeah.
Not what you got. Yeah, no. This didn't go where I expected it to go.
Sure.
I thought we were going to do like a more of like a there will be blood type of situation in this film.
Yeah.
And no. Not at all. This was about as subtle of a drama as you can find out there, and it is slow burn. What do you think?
I would say slow burn. That's kind of a good way to put it. I feel like the little seeds are planted there at the very beginning, so you know
right.
that slow burn is kind of coming, and yeah.
I think with this film, you have to be in the right mood for it. Because it's just, it takes its time. The acting is nuanced. I mean, Ray Fiennes, Carey Mulligan are great.
Oh, yeah.
Even the kid was really good. I mean, it's just the performances are solid and they're nuanced and they feel like real people. They don't feel like caricatures, which is great. But you got to be ready to go into that. If you just sit down and you're thinking, okay, I'm just going to watch like a nice drama, I mean, you're just like, oh, okay, here we go. We're taking a real life kind of situation here.
Yeah.
And it's about archaeology. I mean, it's hard to enthrall people with that.
And archaeology in an area you would never honestly think of, because in general, we think of archaeology like dinosaurs or
right.
Egypt.
Yeah.
And here we are in, Britain right before World War II talking about archaeologists. It's crazy.
Right. And they were trying to keep the pace up, you could tell, through the impending war with Germany. So,
right.
You keep seeing planes fly overhead and you keep hearing people talk about it. But in general, it's just this kind of subtle anxiety that is really downplayed because it's British culture. Sure. So they're not wearing it on their shoulders. But that was one way that they're trying to keep the pace, trying to keep your attention.
Yeah.
The other way they did it was through music. It was through the sound.
Oh God, I think that's what got me in the end, and I'll talk about that later. But the soundtrack was just, the music was great.
Yeah, they were really keeping up the pace with it because you're watching the guy dig and you're like he's just moving dirt, but then like the music is hitting you and the sound effects, and then all of a sudden he's caved in. You're like, oh, this guy might not be breathing, So that was successful. But I could see as a writer getting this gig going, I don't even know how do you make this interesting, Right?
I don't know. I mean, like it being based on a true story, I found really interesting. I mean, I kind of love when we're talking about, based on or inspired by actual event kind of stuff.
I agree with you, but here's the thing. Like the based on a true story aspect, Carey Mulligan, Miss Pretty, in real life was a spiritualist. And back then, spiritualists did seances, they did group seances, they talked to the dead, they did all kinds of weird stuff. And I'm like, I would have been thrown that in because that's fascinating. And we're already dealing with the theme of death, right?
Yeah. After what afterlife is.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
And
right?
and a longing and yearning as well. So those are the
Mhm.
kind of the tones and the themes we're going with. So I would have included that, but they chose to omit it. I'm
Yeah, that was
assuming.
that was cut. I didn't know her story, so hearing that,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, there's a difference there in that
Oh,
characterization.
I think it could have been a really cool thing, and it definitely would have kept the pace going. But obviously, they wanted to keep her as, I guess, empathetic as possible,
Yeah,
the down to earth, lonely widow. I mean, it really is kind of what they are going for.
yeah, for sure.
But
it was so. I liked it.
you liked it. So
I did.
So obviously, my feeling is that they were billing Ray Fiennes as the central character, right?
Yes.
Brown, right? Basil Brown,
Yes.
who is not an archaeologist. He's a quote excavator because he has no real education in archaeology. He doesn't have a degree, but he's a learned man through. He's an autodidact. I mean, that's what I am, and I can respect and appreciate anybody like that.
Right.
And there was a lot of that then. I mean, people that would really teach themselves and become experts. So you think he's a central character, but then you quickly realize, like, no, it's not. No. This is her story.
Yeah. And I realized that when I put two and two together, where she just had this feeling. She said, I have this feeling. This is the mound I want to dig up, right?
Yeah.
So it's her already in her feeling, in her gut, and in her heart.
Yes.
And then she starts to get sick with what I'm assuming was probably heart disease or something along those lines.
I mean, it's certainly they certainly billed it as some kind of a heart disease. I mean, they called it stomach acid. It could have been cancer. We don't know, but whatever it is, they didn't have the medicine to treat it, especially with the war coming up. So but
her heart was dying. Like her heart was literally, we're watching her character, but her heart's breaking and dying, and we're kind of watching that.
God, I mean, that's a beautiful observation. She's heartbroken because she's a widow. She's lost her husband. She has hired this man to come and excavate their land because it's what she wanted to do with her husband. That's why they bought the land before he passed. So she's trying to keep his memory alive through this excavation as she's heartbroken, and then physically has heart disease, which is that's an absolutely a beautiful observation. But
it was her story. You're right. It was her story. It wasn't. Yeah.
Absolutely her story. And some of the tricks they were using to really try and keep your attention is they hinted at a possible love triangle and then backed way far away from it to have like a story twist in there. And I just looked at it. These are just mechanisms. We're just trying to keep people interested at this point.
Sure. Yeah.
The other thing, this is something that I always have an issue with because it can go south so fast, is to bring in characters that play a prominent role like mid-act 2, because they come in so late to the story. It's hard to really develop them. And this story is guilty of that. This story brings in a bunch of characters in Act 2, and then you kind of have to get to know them. So a lot of screen time is shifted over to their subplots because we've brought in these extra characters to keep the story going forward.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good observation as well, for sure.
I think they pulled it off. I mean, I think it works because by the end of the story, the Peggy character, when she realized, spoilers, guys, but the show. Yeah. When you realize that her husband is secretly gay and in the closet,
right?
And then she's heartbroken because, again, this is about yearning, right? This is about yearning for lost love. The man she married can't love her in the way that she wants to be loved. And so you're like, oh my God, what a powerful subplot. And she did get a lot more screen time in that mid-act 2, but they pulled it off because I was definitely feeling for her at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love the moment. I love the moment when she has that realization and then the husband walks up and the exchange between them, without saying a word, said everything. And it was so great. And the actors were fantastic. It just worked. I love that.
It was very visual. And then eventually you hear the line, I could learn to love you. And then your heart sinks. You're like, oh my God,
Right, you can't.
You shouldn't
Yeah.
have to do that. Nobody
Mhm.
should have to suffer through that on either end of that
Sure.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then showing the her taking the ring off and then dropping it into the ground, which then would become an artifact,
An
right? So
artifact.
yeah, it
Exactly.
works right back
Mhm.
into the story. So I mean, visually, they really put it together well. Now with Mr. Basil Brown's character, he didn't have much of a grand arc, really. He was there really as a foil for her to kind of bounce humanity off of, I would
Yeah.
say,
Mhm.
because we don't really know. He has a wife. He has a mysterious wife, and they just look entirely average together.
Yeah.
They don't look dispassionate,
Mhm.
but they don't look passionate. They just look content.
Yeah.
And
But interestingly, is his wife seems to be the one that is his like she kind of
she
is his
wants it.
consciousness. So she
Yeah.
sees things in him that he's not even admitting. And
Right.
whether or not they pulled that in or wrote that because we needed to see that character development for him, she's that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think she does mention that he's longing for the other woman, and she says it almost in a passive way, but in a confident way where she didn't feel threatened, which I thought was amazing. Because he asked her, "Would you like to stay the night?" And she's like, "No." Like she
Mhm.
knew nothing's going to
Mhm.
happen, which is
But I think she associated even that kind of love triangle thing as
yeah,
just him longing to be there. Like his true love was
right,
literally being there and digging the dirt.
digging, yeah,
And so that woman represents that for him,
right.
right?
Fine, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, finding history and then presenting it in a way that it can live on into the next generation, which was another theme, which brought on by Carey Mulligan's character's son, and he kind of mentored that young boy in a way
Yeah.
that allowed that relationship to grow.
Mhm.
So I mean, there's a lot of facets to this, and that's where the subtlety comes in. My God, you've got to be paying attention though, or you just miss it because
Yeah.
they're not hitting you on the head with anything. That's for
Mm-mm.
sure.
No, no. But I kind of, for me, I appreciated that. I
Did you?
did. I really felt like I was drawn in enough. And maybe it was just the performances because I do feel like even
Right.
though the story was not based around Basil Brown,
Right.
he was captivating. Ray Fiennes is a fantastic
Oh
actor,
yeah. Yeah.
right? So how can you
Exactly.
not want to watch him? But I
I'm.
think they both did a great job of just drawing you in, even though
Yeah.
it was just so subtle and so slow, right?
No, I agree. And I mean, I'm a fan of Ray Fiennes whenever he's in a movie where he has a nose. I think that's great. So I think that's
Where
pretty
he's
awesome.
not he who shall not be named.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. So I got, you get 100% Ray Fiennes right there, not 92. So with the visual of the story, and I want to see how much of this you caught. Oh, initially when we come into the film, even when they're in open water, you don't see it. Everything
Yes.
is very tightly framed, and everything comes into the characters almost as if they're down a narrow corridor, right?
Right, right.
Even when she's walking down a street, or if they're in the trench, or when she's going down to her husband's grave,
Right.
all very trench like. To me, it was screaming World War I trench warfare, trying to give that kind of claustrophobic imaging. But also, I'm thinking of just she feels boxed in, she
Yeah.
feels closed in. And then as we further along the story, you get more open field, wider shots. And I think
Yeah.
that's her kind of coming to the grips of what's going on.
What's going on? Well, and that's really interesting that you say that because you're right. Even the first half of the dig per se, she's still in the house. So
Yeah.
they're out digging. He has to come get her every time. But then she just starts sitting out there and watching
Right.
them.
And becoming
And
part
so-
of it. Yep.
And that shift happened. And you're right. That's a really great observation.
Yeah, the visual shifts, and then it almost looks like a different film.
Yeah. But it's it's interesting that you say that too about the kind of the cinematography in terms of the way that it was shot. But it also, I know that area is pretty much surrounded by water. It's like moorland, right?
Yeah.
So there's and the fact that it's a ship, but it's in the middle of a dry field. So, there was this kind of like symbolism of, which was interesting because in the plane crashes, in the water behind her house. So it's like,
yeah.
The war is happening in your backyard, but what is in your yard? What's going on there?
Very much. Yeah, I think it hits home. I think the plane crash, they had to put that in. That, because the stakes with the war are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You see initially you see like one flyover, right? And it's just like one plane. Then you see like a squadron. Then you go, okay, things, and they're lower. And then you see the plane that's just falling to pieces as it hits the water. And then, the verbal up the stakes of don't go in the water. He goes in the water, saves the kid.
Exactly.
But the guy dies. So, there's the buildup of that. One thing I will say, a lot of the conflict in this film is verbal. I mean, it's a lot of.
That's true. That's very true. I mean, so you were saying that we're not really seeing much more of that internal conflict, or the aspect of
the conflict. The internal conflict it's just so subtle, man. Like, you got to really be paying attention. If you're like half watching this and you're on your phone, you're missing half the movie.
Yeah.
You're not picking it up. So, but a lot of it is almost expositional, and like, this is what I'm experiencing. This is what I've gone through. So there is some talking of my feelings, but there is also using the dig as subtext for what the characters are internally experiencing. And I love that stuff.
Yeah, that was great. That you have a good point. Although I do feel like when Becky's Margaret's character is introduced, I don't know why I said Becky. Sorry,
Peggy.
Peggy. Thank you.
Yeah.
That is probably the only aspect of the film where you see that it's not as subtle. I think that you could see it clearly from the start, and you were following that the whole time.
Yeah, definitely some chauvinistic, toxic masculinity going on there as well. But so well acted. Lily James killed it.
Yeah, that's who it was, good. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
she's great.
And
her subplot about yearning for love, and the idea of moments happen in a life, and you could take advantage of it or not. And she had not taken advantage of a moment. And I love that, because then I love the fact that they showed it. They go, oh, she doesn't get the happy ending. That's good. It's good to show that she had a moment, she didn't step up to it and lost the moment, because then you wonder what's going to happen. And then you get another moment.
Yeah. Which is fine for me.
I didn't expect it. I was kind of frustrated. I was like, damn it, they got me. I thought, oh no, she gets the happy ending and the romantic scene with the guy, which is good. It was sweet. It was cute.
It was fine. But he's going off to war, and the whole fact that there was this element of like, you cannot go die. He's going to go die. A lot of those guys went and never came back from World War II.
It was it's a tragedy. And I mean, the whole not so subtle suggestion is that he probably doesn't make it. But we don't know, and that I don't even want to get into that, because she dies after about 9 years, finally, from her heart condition, and then her son, who knows what happens.
So she in real life actually lived a number of years after they did that. Yeah,
it took like 9 years after the dig, and then she. From what I understand, I could be wrong. I'm not a historian. It was about 9 years or so after the dig, and then she passed away.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and then the stuff with Basil Brown wasn't until
recently.
Not too long ago. Yeah. And then but I did get to see that with the plaque and everything. You see all the cool artifacts. Neat. Yeah, it's pretty neat, man.
Yeah.
Like the coins and stuff like that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the dig, overall, you enjoyed it, and you were moved by it.
I will be transparent and not ashamed to say that I got a little teary cryy at the end.
Aww.
It got me. It got me in the feels.
It nailed you.
I think there was a number of aspects of it. I think it was the fact that, like, he said, I want to take my mom sailing. So he knows he can't do that, but they sit in the boat and they look at the stars, and it's God.
That was such a good scene.
And the music playing at the same time, which the score, again, like you said, lent to that. It was just, I'm watching them, lay in the boat, and I'm like,
yeah, it was. You are absolutely right. It was an exceptionally powerful scene,
Mhm.
and I'm watching it, and I wasn't emotionally moved by it as you were, but I appreciated what they were doing
Yeah.
because it's beautiful. It's beautiful from the little boy character who we know wants to take care of people, which is like, oh my God,
Oh
it
yeah, so
hits me
sweet.
so deep.
Mhm.
And so then he gets his mom on the boat, and then Basil is there as well, and they have this what a beautiful way to end a film. It really
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, them reburying it.
Yeah.
So I mean, talk about the circle of life, because that was the whole aspect of like, what is our surface level look
Yeah.
like? And then when we go to the ground, we're always going to go back to the ground, right?
Yep.
So the fact that they were reburying it was,
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool shot to end the film on. And you
I
never
agree.
left the shot. So the credits
No.
rolled as they were still burying the ship.
Yeah.
Which was
They
awesome.
crane out. Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
really good. Yeah, it's awesome. And as they're craning out, they're pulling up, and they're just showing how big the place is.
Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
little you really are. Man, yeah.
Mhm.
It's an artistic film.
Mhm.
It really
Mhm.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, but it did. I mean, for anybody who really likes kind of that, they want that subtle aspect. They just want to sit and just soak in something and really think about it. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great flick.
It is, yeah. If you're into that kind of an artistic approach, if you really want to sit down and watch an intelligent drama with subtle performances, this is your movie. If you're thinking you're sitting down and it's going to be kind
Indiana
of
Jones, it's not. We did
no. Or if you think
do-
it's going to be over the top, like There Will Be Blood, and you're going to see like huge performances, you're not going Daniel Day-Lewis here. Yeah. I was just like, whoa, okay, I need to stop thinking what the film is going to be like and just sit down and let it hit me.
and let it do. Yeah. Because every week we've said, let's pick this thing, and we
Yeah.
sit down with this expectation. It's never what we think.
It's good to have a theme, I think. That is our theme of the show is, hey, let's sit down for this. Oh, this is going left.
This is not the direction I was thinking it was going.
Let me sit down. Hold on. All right. Well, all right. So this is a good one. And we will look for another one next week.
Yeah. I mean, this is what we do. We sit and we talk, and we give you flicks to go watch.
But I think we broke this one down pretty well because there's a lot going to it. It's very, very nuanced, and it's easy to miss stuff. And you can really sit down, but watching the visual palette and seeing how they can take a slow burn film and use things like music to really pick up the pace.
Yes, yeah.
Is significant, because how many indie films out there, have you seen that are like this, but they can't pull it off?
They can't pull it off. And also, I feel like having the specific cast or the right actors, again, I'm going to throw it to Carey Mulligan and Ray Fiennes, because I don't feel like that would have even been as strong had those actors probably not been in those roles.
No, I think you're right. Actors can really bring so much to a script, and their approach and the choices they make can really absolutely elevate a project. And I think something like that, if you had a character that phoned it in with no nuance to the lines, it's dead in the water.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this episode was brought to you by the Script Summit Screenplay Contest, where you can win a cash prize with a chance to have a contract with a Hollywood talent manager.
Yay!
All right, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. And of course, Kristy, thanks for being here.
I'm always glad to be here. See you on the next one.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share in your social media, where you can tag us at The Successful Screenwriter.